This is Tech Talk Detroit with Brian Spurgeon and Chuck Lobert. Tech Talk Detroit brings you the latest in tech news and Detroit happenings every week.
Tech Talk Detroit. First of all, we want to apologize. We missed last week. I just had a crazy week and weren't able to get together to do the podcast. So we apologize for that, but we wanted to make sure to get back on track this week. And so from here moving forward, obviously, as we've said before, we're going to do our best to do it every week. But, sometimes things just kind of get crazy a bit. So sometimes we have to miss. But, Brian, how are things going?
Everything's going good. Taking it in stride and certainly keeping busy over here with projects. What about you, Chuck?
Yeah, same. I'm looking for a car for my daughter, so she's going to be turning 16 in September. So obviously we have time, but we figured we'd start the process now, and I'm about ready to just give up and buy a horse and tell her she's going to take the horse everywhere.
What a scary thought, though, man. That's the first
Right?
daughter learning to drive. So
Right. I know, it's crazy, especially when I think back to when I started with Vision. My wife was pregnant with this daughter, so been with Vision now up just over 16 years, and yeah, it's coming up. It's been crazy. What about you? What have you been up to?
Just more do-it-yourself house projects. I spent yesterday working through fixing leaky shower, and it was a simple 10-minute fix to just replace the valve, but of course the shutoff valve was broke in the basement, so then it turned into a whole new larger project, as you can imagine. So a 10-minute repair turned into half a day, and needless to say, the shower's good to go, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I've got to do the same thing, but I've been putting it off because that's exactly what I'm afraid of. Is I have to I have to shut off the water to the whole house. I don't have a shutoff valve just for that particular shower, and then the screws. The thing's been in there probably since the house was built back in I think 1980 or something like that, and so the screws won't come out. So I'm gonna have to hacksaw the handles off to fix it, and I'm just I'm terrified of doing that and then finding out something else is going on and then having to wait days to call the plumber and not being able to turn my water on or something. So I may just have to break down and actually hire a plumber as opposed to my typical repair policy of YouTubing.
That's no fun. Yeah, it took a while to find the shutoffs. It's two-story colonial, so of course the basement's got a drop ceiling, and I'd say 70% of the tiles you can't even lift up because there's a vent above it. And
right.
You know how it is. You're up there popping in and out trying to find it, but got it all figured out, got it squared away. So onto the car, though, the question is, are you buying yourself a nice new car and handing down, or are you doing it the other way around?
No, we're doing it the other way around. Because the thing is obviously with it being my daughter, we want it to be super safe. So there's my father-in-law works for Ford, and he in particular works on designing where the welds go on cars. So he knows safety, like the crash testing and all of that inside and out. And there's one specific test that he said is like the test that you want to make sure that is good really be able to call it a safe. And it's the small overlap front test, I think is what they call it. And so first thing we do is start looking, we'd like a smaller SUV, because, my wife thinks if it's bigger, it's safer, which, there's some truth to that. And then we look at cars that meet that small overlap front and get a good rating on it. And when my car was built, that test wasn't even around yet. So there's no way to know how it does on that particular test. On top of that, my car's got 115,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. We're looking for something more like 80,000. I want to make sure my car runs really, really well still, but I want to make sure she's not going to end up on the side of the road somewhere. So, we kind of put all that together. And so there's basically like 5 models of cars that we're looking at in specific years and looking at the mileage. And the thing that's driving me really nuts is it used to be, when you went in and you said, what, I'm looking to pay cash for a car, that meant you got the best price. Now, a lot of these prices I'm seeing online, I reach out and I find out about it, and they go, "Oh, you're paying cash? Well, that means you don't get this finance discount of $1,000." And, "Oh, you don't have a trade-in? Well, that means you don't get this trade-in discount of $1,000." So a lot of places, especially because I'm looking all over the place, I figure,
Yep.
if I find the right car for the right price, I'll fly down to Florida and drive the thing home. I don't care. But what I'm finding is most of the pricing that you see online is not real. It's you call and it's, oh, well, if you're paying cash, it's an extra $2,000. And so that's just, it's driving me crazy, and I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I went through a similar ordeal, and I was shocked the same too. You would think cash rules all, but that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, I know. I actually asked the guy this morning. I talked to him, like, when did it change? Like, it used to be you had your price and then you had your cash price, and your cash price was always lower. Now you're going to pay more if you're paying cash. Like, this makes no sense.
Did you hit them with the back in my day?
You're right. I think I did, more or less. I didn't say those words, but I think I did that. So anyways, we figured we would talk today a bit about, what we call co-managed IT. So, specifically looking at, some of those larger businesses, and, they may have an on-site IT person or team. Maybe they have an on-site IT manager, maybe they have somebody that handles some of the end user support right now, or maybe they have a team of people, and they're maybe growing and saying, okay, we need to add on to our team, or maybe they're saying, okay, how can we bring down some costs, or how can we make our team more efficient without adding, and that's kind of where it might make sense to look at outsourcing your IT, not all of it, but a piece of it, so that it helps make that team, opens them up for certain things, maybe bigger projects, stuff like that, or maybe you're looking for help on bigger projects, and then you can kind of co-manage that piece of it, or maybe you're looking for somebody to just manage the servers and the cloud infrastructure, and you want your team to just worry about the end user support. There's lots of kind of different ways to look at it, and it's very customizable, and it's really a good solution for a lot of these larger businesses to look at, especially when we think of right now, people that are looking to be able to maybe bring back that IT team who's been working remote, and maybe they're in a spot where they need more help, but they don't want to invest that extra money to get more help. Co-managing might be a good way to get that extra help at a lower cost. So thought we could talk a bit about that today, and what that looks like, what the advantages are, what you should be concerned about, what you should be looking for, all of that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts on co-managed IT? Where are the benefits, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few areas where it makes complete sense and benefits. Obviously, I think a big portion of this is dependent upon the size of the business, and we can kind of get into what scenarios make the most sense. But in terms of just overall benefits, I think the advantage you're going to get is, partnering up with a managed service company. You're going to get 24/7 monitoring and support, which is really difficult for a typical company to try to staff for. If you're going to try to run 3 shifts for your IT department, you can imagine right there what the cost is going to look like. And also, if you're the type of company that has that just single on-site guy, it's a large ask to have them available 24/7 in case emergencies happen. So I think just that 24/7 support and monitoring is key. Piggybacking off of that, I think the second piece is the tool set that you're going to have access to. For us, I mean, we have an unbelievable amount of resources tied up into our tools. And by resources, it's a large cost sink that we've invested into, but more importantly, a lot of time, customization, and training. So it's really difficult for a standalone company to try to duplicate what managed service companies like ourselves have in place. So I think the tool set is really probably the largest benefit you're going to have.
And I think too, that's where really that making them more efficient really comes into play, because when you get access to the tools, the ticketing system, the remote monitoring and management system, the ability to do a lot of things without having to visit the desk necessarily, and being able to do a lot of those monitoring, a lot of those maintenance tasks, the updates, all of that kind of stuff, and just automate a lot of it. it really helps to make that team way more efficient. So now you're going to get a lot more out of that team than you were able to before. And it makes their lives a lot easier. Now they have an easy way to jump on somebody's computer without leaving their desk if the situation warrants that.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot more happening in the background. So, like you said, there's a big investment there. I think we've probably got a $500,000 investment into the infrastructure and the software and everything to do all of that. But that's one of those advantages when you talk about co-managing, is now your internal team gets access to that system to be able to make them more efficient. And now maybe they have time to go out and get some training and stuff like that. And that's, I think, the other big thing is that we've seen in the past is when we look at certain businesses and why they use certain things, a lot of times it's based on what the internal IT team knows. So that's kind of, you're limited, so to speak, to their
Mm-hmm.
pool of knowledge.
Exactly.
Whereas when you work with an outsourced provider, now you open up, you've got, just if you look at somebody like us, you've got 10 different technical people of different varying knowledge sets and experience sets, and we work with 80 plus different clients that use different pieces of software. So it opens up that skill set and that knowledge set broadly to be able to bring in now a lot more experience and a lot more training and a lot more knowledge around different things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. If you're in a C-level position and you're overseeing the IT department, chances are you're not a technical person yourself. So how do you make a decision about what your IT team should be training on? It's really hard. I couldn't imagine trying to keep up with that as well as your actual role in running the business. So for us, that's all we do. I'm always evaluating the newest products out. We're keeping up with all of our vendors. And more importantly, we're driving our technicians to stay trained and stay current. And we're investing, again, more resources into that, both time and money, to keep our team sharp. So that's an immediate advantage. And I think along with that, we see two different types of clients that leverage these co-managed relationships. There's the companies that have, more of the end user support technicians in place, where they want a local team that can respond quickly when issues come up, where they have a set of techs that can quickly get over to somebody's desk, troubleshoot what's going on, and if they are not able to resolve it, they're able to then escalate and pull in our team as a higher level escalation point to help with that issue. So again, that's where that extra training and skill set that the managed services are going to have that bring to the table. And then the other scenario is you have somebody that's overseeing IT and really focusing on the strategy portion of it. So they're in much more of a growing the business using technology role, that they don't have the means to be able to support all of the end users. And when I think about the companies like that, they've usually grown pretty rapidly. So this is a guy that's been involved, for some time, understands the network well, but the company has grown well beyond that person's means. And I think those are the two unique relationships we work with the most. But in both situations, I think the skill set that we bring to the table is really what's a very big advantage for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the hesitance seems to always be around, well, this company is going to come in and try to take my job, right? They're going to try to phase me out of this company and just replace me. And that's where, when you got to make sure you're working with the right partner, I guess, is, you go off of talking to other companies that deal with them in a co-managed standpoint and make sure that they've got a good reputation, make sure they're well established. Because the right partner is not going to do that. They're gonna really envelop you into their system and make you their ally, their partner, and really just kind of become an extension of the department. So I feel like a lot of times when companies look at that co-managed type environment, a lot of times it might be like a CIO or something like that that's looking at it, and they might be looking at it like, okay, yeah, this would be great, but I don't want to replace my internal team. I'm not looking to bring somebody in to replace them. And that's where the co-managed is really, that's why it's called co-managed and not just your typical managed services. Your typical managed services, yes, the MSP's coming in and they're doing everything. In a co-managed, there's that co-word, right? You're working along with that team, working along with that department to really be able to just provide a better experience for the end users. And ultimately what happens when you work with the right partner is it makes everybody in that team more valuable to the organization, because now they're more efficient, they can get more done. It just makes everybody look better. And that's the perfect working relationship, when both the MSP and the IT personnel on staff look really good because everything's just going perfect.
Yeah, that's exactly true. I think another benefit that comes to mind is security, cybersecurity in particular. You know, that's a real concern. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast, a lot of different angles we've approached it from, but ultimately, that's something that the managed services is going to bring to the table, is being able to help you make sure that your security is in place, that you do have, you know, good protections and precautions in place to save your business. And I think that is really invaluable to bring that to the table. You know, we have a lot of different partnerships with other companies similar to ours, where we can bring in the right solution for you and ultimately manage it. And I think that's, you know, to try to hire a security expert on staff, that's a huge cost that you're going to have to put up front. And I think, you know, it just makes sense to leverage a managed service provider to handle that for you.
Yeah, and I think also just the partnerships. You know, you touched on it a bit as well, but it's tough for an individual organization, unless it's, you know, you're talking about GM or Ford or something like that, to have really good relationships with their partners like Microsoft. And you know, we had Arctic Wolf on a couple of weeks ago. So that's where, you know, an MSP, again, you know, a good MSP's got really good partnerships. They're a good Microsoft partner. You talked about security. They're partnered up with somebody like an Arctic Wolf, or they've got security staff or security people on their staff. And then you can kind of take advantage of their partnerships through that. So you get, you know, maybe a higher level of support from different people, or you get maybe better pricing depending on who you're talking about, you know. So you're able to utilize those partnerships that these channel providers, these managed service providers have, that as an individual organization you probably don't have.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, this kind of the last big point that I think is a huge value add is, in a lot of ways, this is a huge cost saving effort for most businesses that decide to go this co-managed route. Again, like I started off with, if you were to try to staff a full IT department to handle 24/7 support, invest the money into the tools, have a security expert on staff, your annual payroll cost is going to be through the roof in terms of IT. So the predictable upfront cost that managed service brings to the table is going to make sure that you are in a much more cost-effective way, but also the proactive nature in which, you know, companies like ours operate on. Your costs are much more predictable over time. You're not going to have these sudden expenses that pop out of nowhere, where all of a sudden, you know, there's all these computers that you need to replace and you weren't aware of, or you're having hardware failures all over the board because hard drives are dying and you have no system in place that's alerting you to that ahead of time. And I think that's one of the things that probably frustrates a lot of companies, is when large expenses that come by way of IT seemingly come out of nowhere. And I think managed services are able to get ahead of that and give you much more predictive monthly cost in terms of your IT. And it's that strategy piece, right? It's meeting now about what you're going to do in 2021, 2022, 2023. You know, we're able to come in and help you establish what your budget should be for technology, and kind of give you an idea of what you guys should be looking in terms of investment wise into the tech.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you touched on the different roles. If you look at a, you know, fully built out IT department, you know, you've got your end user support, you've got your server level, network level support, you've got your network operations. I mean, that's, you know, managing and monitoring your backups and your security, you know, from an antivirus standpoint, your patching, all of that kind of stuff. You've got your security experts. So when you really start looking at building out a team, it's not a 1, 2, 3 person team. To really have everything covered, you need a full department. And that's, again, where, you know, maybe you have your 1, 2, 3 people on site now, but you need that full department. That's where that co-manage can come in. You get instant access to a whole department. So your that co-managed partner is going to have that network operations team. They're going to have the security expertise. They're going to have the high level expertise, and they're going to have that end user piece as well. So you get access to that whole, build out that whole department, that whole organizational chart, so to speak, immediately, and at a much lower cost than building that out all on your own.
Yeah, I think it's all great points. So let me ask you this question. I think at the end of the day, co-managed IT is not for everybody, though. I think there is certain, thresholds or requirements that where it makes complete sense, and I think there's certain situations where I think it doesn't make sense. From your experience, what do you think is kind of that tipping point where if your company meets these requirements, you should be thinking about co-managed?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's based on size. A lot of it's based on what you currently have. So if you've got, if you're larger to a point where you need to have on-site staff, right, and you need that on-site presence, whether it's for you feel you need it for IT management, or a lot of times what we see is people feel like they need that desk side support. They're not comfortable with the relying on somebody that's not sitting there in the office with them, right? So that's kind of where it starts to make sense. Beyond that, a lot of it's going to come down to the budget as well. If your budget doesn't allow for you to have a full built out team, then that's where it makes sense to talk about co-managed IT. Those are the things that really come to me right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately it. It's size is a huge differentiator. I think another good entry point into considering starting a co-managed relationship is if you are in need of a big infrastructure refresh or a project. I think with that being said, most on-site IT people, they've supported the same environment for years on end now, and they're probably not aware of all the different options out there, right? Especially if they're used to this on-premise infrastructure. How do you start the discussion of, can we go to the cloud? Is cloud even an option? So I do think, when you hit that point where you're going to invest a large amount of money into a project, if even you bring in a managed service provider to assist with the project, it also kind of gives you a good trial run in terms of kind of feeling out this company. Did my staff feel comfortable working with them? Did they feel like they were able to leverage them through it? Did they minimize downtime in the project, right? And did they bring an extra level of expertise and strategy that maybe we were missing? And I think that's a good entry point into a relationship. And I think that's often where we see it start is, there's a company that wants to take on an initiative like moving to the cloud. They don't have experience, so they want to bring in a company like ours to do it. And I think that tends to often be, a good starting point to the relationship.
And to that point, if you don't have somebody on staff today that has the experience to do the migration, do you have anybody on staff today to manage it after the fact? So that's where you can really start to build that co-manage. Maybe you bring somebody on, they help you get to the cloud, and then you just keep them on to just manage those cloud servers and the cloud infrastructure, whatever it is. So that's where you can really start to customize things so that you really get just exactly what you need and what you want. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, I love the co-managed relationships. I think they're some of my favorite. We have several clients that fall under this umbrella. We have some contacts where they've been the IT guy for a company for years, and they've moved on to a different provider, and they've also roped us in there as well because the relationship worked so well the first time around. They wanted to bring it into the next company, and we've seen that multiple times. So, I think the key is like you said, getting over the fact that we're not here to take the job from anybody, that it is a co-managed relationship, that we need both entities to be working together as one. And I think when you get past that obstacle, that small obstacle, I think they work out great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Well, appreciate you taking the time with me again today. It's hopefully people will get something out of this. We were finally able to break away from what we've talked about for the last several
Yes.
weeks. So that's been nice. So
Feels
things
good.
are starting to feel a little bit more
Yeah.
normal, I think.
Weather changing, perceptions
Yes.
changing, breath of fresh air. I'm all
Yes.
about it. Bring it on. That's what I'm here
Yes.
for.
All right. Well, we will talk to you again next week.
Interact with Tech Talk Detroit at techtalkdetroit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.